All right, guys, it's your boy Mullah. We got that fire. Now, if you're not with the Marvel Universe, this is not for you. Okay? Just cut it out right about now. So, let's check out Loki.
Loki is very nearly arrived on Disney Plus, continuing Marvel's tradition of taking British actors killed off in Avengers Infinity War and resurrecting them through overcomplicated logic we probably still won't fully understand even after the series ends. But hey, that's why I'm here. This is my glorious purpose, Dad, to explain the trippy timeline logic that brought Loki back to us. Because it's really not as simple as him just going poof out of Avengers Endgame.
How
That
did this
movie
work,
left a
people?
lot unexplained about its timeline logic that we have been
What
trying
is
to piece
going
together
on?
with these various Disney Plus series. Now don't worry, there will be no spoilers for any episodes of Loki in this video. Our after show and my Easter egg breakdown will come out next on the channel. But here I'm going to explain the logical framework that Loki is operating under. Because they're not just saying it like lots of time travel stories are, they're actually trying to make it make sense first and then saying it. Now we know the Loki series picks up with the God of Mischief after his escape during the time heist in Avengers Endgame when he snatched the Tesseract after the Avengers fumbled it and vanished. But
that's
if Loki
another
was using the
Space Stone
to teleport to a different point in space, and he didn't move forward or backward in time or portal into a new dimension or timeline, at least by the looks of the trailer footage, he just goes to Mongolia. Why is he now in trouble with the Time Variance Authority? And how did the actions of Captain America at the end of Avengers Endgame with the Tesseract and the other Infinity Stones affect Loki's new path? With Avengers Endgame, the Marvel Cinematic Universe embraced a new type of time travel logic that I refer to as the Type 2 branch timeline approach. Why Type 2? Because it makes you go look what Type 1 was. Go watch that video, please. Branch timeline is loosely based on the many worlds theory of theoretical physics, where there are actually an infinite number of parallel universes. So unlike time travel stories like the first Back to the Future film or Terminator, where all the time travel shenanigans take place along one historical timeline that works or erases things within that timeline, in branch timeline fiction, going back in time and changing things in the past causes an alternate branch history to split off, leaving that original timeline unchanged, but forming a multiverse of parallel realities. When the Avengers went back in time to steal the Infinity Stones from history, with each of those changes, they actually created a new branch history. Remember, the Ancient One warned them that at the end of their mission, they would have to go back again and return each stone in order to clip off each branch. Now, in Loki, the TVA calls this the sacred timeline, and they use a very similar visual for it. And they appear similarly fearful of a chaotic multiverse, and instead prefer the flow of time to be kept within one sacred timeline. So when Loki takes the Tesseract, the original Marvel timeline as we knew it, the sacred timeline, continues on unchanged, but this Loki now becomes a variant who drags his whole universe around him, along with him, into a skewed branch timeline that threatens the original sacred timeline. Now, the reason this did not happen with the Avengers is, in Endgame, Cap followed the Ancient One's rules and restored the sacred timeline by returning each of the stones from when and where they were taken. And by doing so, each branch timeline that those stoneless histories were on rejoined with the main sacred timeline. Now sure, it requires a bit of speculation here because the Endgame filmmakers kept that restoration off screen. Really, because a lot of those stone returns would have been pretty awkward to digest during the film's final emotional beats. Like think about it, Cap would have had to go to 2012 to give the time stone back to the Ancient One. No problem there, but then you would have had to bring Loki's scepter with the Mind Stone back to the shield agents he took it from, knowing fully well that they were corrupted by Hydra. And then he would have had to put the Power Stone back into the magnetic field on Morag, not a big deal, but then he would have had to inject the Reality Stone ether back into Jane Foster on Asgard. Yikes. And then he would have had to go to Vormir to confront his old buddy Red Skull as he returned the Soul Stone to him. And then he would have had to return to 1970 and flip the Tesseract back into the shield basement container and re-welded it shut after Tony Stark had taken it. Yeah, I know, it's a mess. And it is this mess that the Loki series is diving headfirst into, because Loki's Tesseract snatch represents an unfixable breach to the sacred timeline. But before we continue, I am trying to eat better, which means trying to avoid extra sugar, which stuff because of sugar is just to go back with Thor to Asgard to get imprisoned, allow Frigga to get killed by the Dark Elves, and then break out and help Thor and Niflheim fake his death, and then secretly replace Odin, and then get caught and watch Odin die, and then escape Sakaar with Thor, Hulk, and Valkyrie, and then summon Surtur to destroy Asgard, and then steal the Tesseract and give that Tesseract to Thanos, who then kills him. But by escaping, Loki altered that destiny, and he took an Infinity Stone with him, which also altered that stone's destined path of being in Camp Lehigh in 1970, then in the hands of Wendy Lawson in the late 80s, then powering the Skrull space station and Earth's orbit from 89 to 95, then swallowed by Goose the Flurkin from 95 to the mid 2000s, we think, then experimented on by Nick Fury under Project Pegasus until 2012, reclaimed by the Avengers and taken back to Asgard with Loki and stored in Odin's vault until Loki steals it again in 2017 during Ragnarok and gives it to Thanos in Infinity War in 2018. But by taking the Tesseract in 2012 and fleeing, Loki altered that history, removing the Infinity Stone from its timeline and himself from his timeline, with the reality he is now in this Loki series, part of a new branch history. So it doesn't matter that Loki went through a portal in space and not a portal in time or a portal to realities. He nonetheless created a new sequence of events contrary to what the sacred timeline dictated.
So
therefore,
it's
the TVA considers him an unflipped branch, one lingering violation from Endgame that Cap could never restore. Like, despite Cap returning the Space Stone in 1970, that Space Stone still would have made its way through history to 2012 into the hands of Loki, who escaped with it. Now again, why is this unfixable? Well, Loki could theoretically go back himself and fix that variance, but he would have to resurrender himself to the Avengers. I am guessing that after watching that alternate life play out in the TVA time theater, this guy's not going to want to return to a life where he is destined to get his neck snapped by Thanos. So really the problem is that the TVA, as we see in trailer footage, shows Loki that destiny.
Get up out of here,
guaranteeing that he would never want to return to it. So while it is Loki who first breaks the timeline, it's the TVA who keeps it broken, at least temporarily, to use Loki to help them with this greater timeline crisis. And realistically, based on the nature of chaos and the fact that this Loki variant probably isn't going to go back to a historical path we've already seen him on, but rather some other future, as this series is going to live on at least for a second season, I don't think this sacred timeline is going to last forever. And a true Marvel multiverse, including variant Lokis and variant Avengers, variant all of these characters, is now, as we look ahead to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, much like the rule breaker who kicked off this crisis, inevitable. Hey, check out one of our great Loki-inspired merch options at newrockstarsmerch.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at EABoss. Follow New Rockstars. Subscribe to New Rockstars for more analysis and breakdowns of everything Marvel. Thanks for...
Well, guys,
I can see a cucumber in the new garden.
That's the multi-universe Marvel. So if you're not MCU, then fuck off. It's your boy Mullah this week out there. I'll be back with another one. I'm out of here.